let's jump into the first game of the week. Very interesting game in my eyes. Ole Miss goes on the road to Arkansas, and Ole Miss is only favored by 7 points here. I believe when Tennessee went into Arkansas, it was something like 10.5, 11 points. So that's a very interesting line to me. Ole Miss on the year is 22nd in offensive points per game with 34.3. They are 8th in the country still at 7 yards per play. Yards per rush, they are 51st in the country. Yards per pass, they are 3rd in the country at 10.3. And QB sack percentage, which is, in my opinion, the weakness of this team, is the offensive line, is 6.67%. Now let's get to the defense, which actually, to me, has been the stronger unit on this team. 12.6 points per game, 4th in the country. 4 yards per play, 3rd in the country. 2.3 yards per rush, 2nd in the country. 6.2 yards per pass, 26th in the country. And they get after it very well, 10.42% sack percentage, which is 5th in the country. Next up, we will talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks, who are coming off of another 600-yard game performance, which there's very few teams in the country that have had that multiple times this year, and Arkansas is one of them. 28 points per game, 54th in the country, 6.1 yards per play, 30th in the country, 4.9 yards per rush, 37th in the country, and 8 yards per pass, 26th in the country, and then 6.85% sack rate given up. That is 84th in the country. We'll move on to that Arkansas defense, which has definitely been better than most people have thought. 24.9 points per game, 60th in the country, 5.5 yards per play, 65th in the country, 4 yards per rush, 47th in the country, 7.4 yards per pass, 69th in the country, and 5.71% sack rate. That is 69th in the country. Tyler, what do you think about this game?
Oh, yeah, I think this is actually going to be the best game of the weekend in the SEC, that is. It's a big week for college football towards really for the Big Ten, but yeah, in the SEC, got a couple really good matchups. I think this is the best one. Both teams are kind of on the opposite spectrum coming in. Ole Miss a couple weeks ago lost to LSU, kind of depleted, had a bye week, and I think both of us thought that Ole Miss would come out and lay it on Oklahoma, and that's the complete opposite of what they did. Now, Arkansas came off of 2 weeks ago a loss to LSU as well, and they lost 34-10. They come in angry. Should have put up about 60, 70 points on Mississippi State. And they did it without Jaquin Jackson, too. Their backup running back came in and rushed for almost 200 yards. They just did anything and everything they wanted against Mississippi State, who we also thought was getting better and better, but geez. But anyways, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty good game here. Arkansas starts their gauntlet now. They play Ole Miss, then they have a bye week. That's huge. Then they play Texas. Okay, and then finishing off the year, I know they play Louisiana Tech, but they play at Missouri. So the goal for Sam Pittman, I think, is going 2-2 here. Obviously beat Louisiana Tech, but to find another signature win, this would be, I think, a signature win here at home. I like Arkansas on the points here. I think it's going to be a very close game. If you've been watching this kind of rivalry, it's been back and forth. And Ole Miss, I think, won last year in a blowout. I think Ole Miss is going to win this game, but I think Arkansas is going to compete. I like Jackson Dart to hopefully Trey Harris is back. I didn't know that he'd be out last week, and hopefully just Quinn Jackson would be back too, because those are probably their two most explosive players on each side. I'm just worried. Again, I'm worried about Taylon Green here making too many mistakes. That's what I'm going to go based upon. I think he's going to make one or too many mistakes in this game, but Ole Miss is going to find a way to beat Arkansas. Remember, they do play Georgia next week, but I think it's going to be a close 30-27 type deal where Arkansas covers, and I guess I would take the over slightly.
Yeah, I'm going to say what I said last week about Taylon Green. It really comes down to if he's able to perform and perform cleanly. He was able to do that somewhat versus Mississippi State, and when he's on, he's on. He's really good. When he's off, he's not very good. So it's going to be interesting how he plays in this game, and I completely agree about the Trey Harris thing. You and I both agreed if he played, I think we'd take him to cover. I still probably would have taken him to cover versus Oklahoma, but I definitely wouldn't have picked like 28 points, which I think I said. And yeah, that's not good to come out of a bye week to me. And you have a bad team in Oklahoma. Now, do I think Oklahoma's better than they have been because they finally got the right quarterback in and they fired Seth Luttrell? And by the way, should fire that man into the sun because they were running the complete wrong offense. Like Joe John Finley, that was more of a Levy offense, and you saw it translate pretty well. But overall, there's just something missing from this Ole Miss offense to me. There just is. I don't know if it's the lack of protection for Jackson Dart. I don't know. Like I said, I've never been in love with Jackson Dart, but I think he's better than this. He's not even, in my opinion, watching him, he's not even as good as he was last year. And it has to suck for Ole Miss because the defense is really good. Like, this is probably a top 20 defense in the country, and you're just letting it go to waste, basically. And all we ever heard from Ole Miss was, if you get this defense right, it's going to be scary. You kind of heard the same things from Tennessee as well. And it's funny because they're both kind of struggling on the offensive side of the ball. So if you could promise me Trey Harris is 100%, I'd probably take Ole Miss here. But seeing as he's missed 2 weeks, I'm going to be on board with you, Tyler. I'm going to take Arkansas. I think it's a close game. I do think Ole Miss wins the football game. I'm going to say 27-23, and I'm going to take Arkansas at the points, and I would take the under here just slightly because I do think both these teams can get after the quarterback enough, especially Ole Miss. And then Ole Miss's offensive line isn't great. Arkansas's offensive line is better than Ole Miss, but they're going up against a very good defensive front. So give me Arkansas on the points, but give me the under here so that we differ a little bit. But it's going to be a fun game. I agree. I think this is probably the most competitive game we get, or at least the most fun game we get out of the SEC this week. And we're both on the same side taking Arkansas on the points. Mike G said they should have never fired Petrino the first time. I mean, they kind of had to. I mean, what he did, you couldn't keep him. Yeah, I mean, that whole motorcycle incident was not a good look. So you kind of had to.
And he was a dirtbag, and the program that was a terrible situation. Now that was 10 years ago?
At least, yeah,
I think, or 11. Yeah, I mean, they kind of had to. He's a dirtbag, but. Obviously, he's been a huge part of their offense this year. He was huge with Texas A&M last year, and it's unfortunate that Connor Wigman got hurt at that time. But also, just look what he's done with Taylon Green. Look what he's managed to do with this offense. And this Arkansas team, they are much better than what people thought. They were my sleeper team in the SEC. This is going to be a good game, though. Definitely the best game of the weekend. I think we both took Ole Miss there outright, but Arkansas on the points. I just love 7, and it's probably going to go down, to be honest, with how people bet.
And I think Arkansas and Vanderbilt, to me, are the two teams in the conference where on a week in and week out basis, they can play up. I'm not saying they can beat, but they can play up to the really good teams, but they can also play down to the really bad teams. So they're kind of hard to guess. And so we'll see what happens. Like, it would not shock me in this game, kind of like the South Carolina game. Like, Ole Miss just comes out and boat races them early and then holds on the rest of the way. I could see that happening, but I could also see a world where we kind of see a repeat of that Tennessee game because honestly, Tennessee and Ole Miss kind of mirror each other. Like, they're very similar. So we'll see what happens here.